Welcome to the MiDOViA Menopause Podcast, your trusted source for evidence-based, science-backed information related to menopause. MiDOViA is dedicated to changing the narrative about menopause by educating, raising awareness, and supporting women in this stage of life, both at home and in the workplace. Visit MiDOViA.com to learn more. I'm one of your hosts, April Haberman, and I'm joined by Kim Hart. We're co-founders of MiDOViA, certified health coaches, registered yoga teachers, and midlife mamas specializing in menopause. You're listening to another episode of our podcast, where we offer expert guidance for the most transformative stage of life, bringing you real conversations, education, and resources to help you overcome challenges and reach your full potential through midlife. Join us and our special guests each episode as we bring vibrant, fun, and truthful conversation, and let us help you have a deeper understanding of menopause. Today, we have a special guest who's going to share personal well-being strategies with us. Well-being is quite the buzzword these days, and we're often at a loss of knowing where to even begin. Sharman's going to help us with that. Sharman Ghio has had a storied life, including a diverse and non-traditional path as an artist, entrepreneur, yogi, and marketing leader in the technology industry. A well-being strategist, Sharman guides companies and individuals to define their values and vision and ensure alignment with growth objectives and goals. Through her Totally Wise framework, her mission is to unlock inner wisdom so that we can live in our full potential and power. Sharman's home base is in Seattle. However, she travels frequently while writing, hiking, exploring, and practicing yoga. She can be hired for consulting, workshops, and retreats. Take a listen.
Hi, Sharman. Welcome. We're so glad to have you today.
Thanks, Kim. I'm happy to be here.
So you and I met during COVID. We were both taking a mindfulness class at Microsoft. We haven't actually met in person, but I feel like you're kindred spirits with me and that I've known you a long time. I watched you make some pretty incredible life changes over the last couple of years and adventures, and you've done some deep soul searching. And would you like kind of to tell our audience about your journey and how you ended up where you are right now?
Yes, I'd be happy to. It is true that during the pandemic, my husband and I were doing some daydreaming about traveling and getting away. I think a lot of us were, feeling locked in our houses. So how could we think outside that? And so when our youngest graduated high school in 2022, we made that dream come alive. And so we packed away most of our things in storage. We had a small trailer and our two dogs and ourselves, and we embarked on what we're calling the Great Drive About. And the intention was to just drive around the West while we worked remotely and explore and feel free. And it was wonderful, but not without its challenges, right? I think life tends to laugh at well-made plans, right? And so, we went through Montana. We also went through Utah. We spent many months in Sedona, Arizona, and then we've come down to Scottsdale. And I'll just say that during that time, I didn't expect some things to pop up for me. One of them was empty nesting. And I referenced earlier feeling free. I'm a very independent person, although I have two children I love tremendously. And so this sense of being free when they graduated was more prominent than how might I feel about missing them. And so I did feel like I was empty nesting. There were also some things that popped up. For example, my husband was struggling with a chronic injury. And so that began to really weigh on him heavily, both physically and mentally. And so when you have a partner that's struggling with that, it is very difficult. And that went on for over a year. He ended up seeing 11 surgeons before he could be operated on. So while you're traveling about and trying to navigate all that, it was really hard. One of our adorable dogs was dying of cancer. And so we had to make a really tough decision to, end her physical life because quality was deteriorating. And that was really tricky for us. And then I think what happened really that was the catalyst of this adventure that continued was I experienced toxicity in the workplace. And this was very new for me. And I was really unprepared and caught off guard by someone who was just encoded with well-being, and it's a foundational pillar to who I am. I found myself extremely unwell, and in fact, in the emergency room, thinking I was having a heart attack.
Mm.
And while I sat in that emergency room, I vowed that I would never again be there because of work or anything else. And so I decided I had to get out of Dodge, or out of Arizona, so to speak. So I made the decision to do the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage in Spain. And I can talk a little more about that later, but I really just needed my nervous system to be able to calm down, to reconnect with who I am and what I have to offer. And I had heard several people's account of their Camino pilgrimage. And by the third account, I said, all right, I think that's for me. And so I went by myself and walked 450 miles across Spain in 30 days. And
Wow.
really reclaimed this sense of knowing and grounding and who I am. And that has been really the beginning of this stage of my life.
You face your challenges by leaning in full on to your passions and to the things that were important to you. And I know I asked you about your trek, and you decided with just a few weeks that you were going to go, and took off and did it, and trusted that the universe would take care of you, which is just amazing to me. And so brave. But what did you change during, after going through all of those things, and how are you moving forward? What are some of the decisions that you've made and those aha moments that you're like, this is who I am and this is what I need right now?
Yes, I think when you make a quick decision like I did, and I could have gone anywhere really, I could have gone to Bali and sat on the beach, right? I could have had a luxurious vacation. But knowing who I am, I knew that I had some things to work through. And that was not going to be sitting on a beach because I was going to ruminate, right? And that wasn't going to solve where I was at. So I packed everything on my back. I carried about 16 pounds on my back. I made no advance reservations other than my flight to and from. And it's true. I was provided by, and there's a spirit there, which was tremendous with the other pilgrims and other people. So I would say some of the key things and learnings I had was just simplicity, really living simply. There's so many things, of course, in the, Western world that we think we can't live without. And in fact, when I was on the trail, I would ask some of the Europeans there, because many people from Europe, I would say, what's your perception of Americans? What do you think of us? And it was always big cars and big houses and lots of stuff. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting perspective. So living simply was one. I think also this bond that I have with friends and family. And I've always really cherished that. But as I mentioned before, I've been, very independent. I'm an only child. I spent a lot of time by myself. But I found that once I was then removed from all those comforts, I really, really treasured the bonds I have with friends and family. And I would think, lastly, I just really had this greater sense of knowing and wisdom and grounding around what I have to offer, like my unique gifts that I have to offer, and just know that they're not for everyone. But the people that they are for will be attracted to that. They will find me, we'll find one another. And so I just stand very grounded in that today. And it feels like a sense of ease versus a sense of struggle or striving. And so I just flipped that around a little bit.
Yeah, you can't please everyone all the time, right? And just to receive whoever comes your way and accepts you as you are is beautiful. Well-being, if you think about self-care, think about well-being as you're talking, and well-being is getting a lot of press right now. And I'm just curious how you would define well-being and wellness.
To me, the difference between the two is wellness describes a healthy lifestyle. So that could be the products and services that you use in your life to promote a healthy lifestyle, what you eat, what you drink, how you exercise. If you meditate, you might use an app. So these are all the things we have to promote a healthy lifestyle. Well-being, on the other hand, is a holistic view of a well-lived life. So if you were to look back at your life, maybe, or forward, and you could connect your energy and your actions and the time you spent with the things that mattered most to you, would that align or would it be misaligned? And it's a very unique perspective for everybody because some people are going to treasure things more over other folks. So what I help people and companies do is try to understand what are our values, what are our principles, what are our core guiding, lights, and how do we ensure that we spend more time and flow in those paths of energy versus outside of that. And very subjective, very unique. And that's what I hope I can help people determine and discover for themselves. Just again, I talked about being in the river or being in that sense of ease. It's a hard thing to describe, but when you feel it, you know it's right. And that's well-being or well-lived life to me.
And you talk about being planful about having a well-being strategy. Like I was trying to figure out when I'm following you on social media, like, what do you mean by that? And how do I get one? And like, do I buy it off the shelf? I mean,
I want one. Yeah.
I want one.
Right.
So
a well-being strategy for everybody, right? And I'll just be Oprah about that.
Download for $25 from your website. We're good to go. But no, seriously. Yeah. I love the concept. What's a well-being strategy, and what should our listeners think about when they're kind of trying to create their own?
I'll give you a sense of what that is for me, and I'd love to hear from you both as well on if you have practices that you're doing in your life that helps you. But I would describe it as this. It's this, the analogy of putting on your oxygen mask first before you help others. And I look at it that way. If we take care of ourselves fully, we're then better able to take care of the people in the communities around us. And so rather than be reactive to, let's say, your nervous system getting out of whack or your physical or mental health deteriorating, can you put together a plan, a framework, a strategy, if you will, that helps you align it across? And I have 5 pillars I talk about. So one is the whole self. So to me, that's mind, body, spirit. The second is around financial well-being. How will you manage your money? The third is around community. Do you feel a sense of belonging where you live? There is career well-being. Do you get energized by the work that you do? And then finally, there's social, and that's meaningful friendships in your life. And so I think at times in our life, we might be thinking more about those than others, but I also compare it to this game of whack-a-mole, right? Are you doing whack-a-mole around your own well-being, and you're taking care of one thing and then something else sprouts up? And so you're always in this state of like fight or flight or reaction. And while I can't be perfect all the time, at least if you've identified across these 5 pillars, things that you might do, could be one thing, right? It could be, I'm going to go to bed at 10 p.m. each night, right? It doesn't have to be difficult. It just gives it this certainty and this system and this framework that you begin to apply to your life on a regular basis, and then they become habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And now you have me thinking about all of those areas, like, have I considered all of those all of the time? I think you're right. It's that whack-a-mole, right? Like today it might be this, and tomorrow I'm focused on this, and it's proactive versus reactive. What I'm hearing, and I love that. Yeah.
Are there things that you both are doing that you feel like fall into those categories, or maybe categories that might be lacking that you're like, oh, I'm relatively high on my social well-being, but my financial well-being, right? And so that's how I think people are looking at it. And I'd be curious to learn how you all are looking at that or managing that in your life.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, because financial well-being has been one of those, like, I don't know, things hanging over me. And this year, my husband and I found a financial planner, and we're making plans, and it doesn't feel as daunting anymore, right? I have the most amazing friend group who has supported me from, in every aspect of my life that I cannot imagine not having. And then, I meditate every day and practice yoga on a regular basis. And I walk and I walk and I walk and I walk and I walk. Those are the things that I would say I would put on my well-being plan. But there are times when I feel extra stress that I sometimes forget about those things. those extra little things that I'm like, oh, I'm sort of notorious for saying, just put your feet up the wall. Like sometimes when I feel that extra cortisol hit, I just put my feet up the wall and I remember that. But there's other days where if you have a plan, then you're like, oh, this is what I do now. That's kind of what I'm hearing from you when that hits. April, I know you have regular practices too.
Yeah, I do. And they're very similar to what Kim just noted as well. But, I started getting up at the crack of dawn when I had babies because my babies unfortunately got up at the crack of dawn. But I still get up, before the sun comes up. So I have that time and I pray and I do my journaling. And I could spend hours doing that in the morning to just center myself. I walk. Kim and I don't walk at the same time. We're kind of opposite schedules, but I walk. I have my yoga practice, which I think keeps me sane. I know it keeps me sane. It keeps me breathing. It keeps me rooted and centered. It's interesting that you noted, everyone has their own history really that they bring to the table as you look at the wellness plan or well-being plan. And it's true, the financial piece, I'm right there with Kim. Let's plan for the future because we're not getting any younger. Priority right now. However, I avoid that. And that has a lot to do with my upbringing in my childhood. And I know that, but I still avoid it. So, if we're high low, it's going to be low on the financial piece for me as well. But I agree, just to have those tools in the toolbox to be able to come back to and to be able to recognize that you're feeling a certain way, right? Or you're low in a certain area and you're not, to take the time to actually notice and evaluate. I'm curious about you. What regular practices do you have, and how might they have changed in midlife, or have they?
Yes, I would say from a perception around like society standards and expectations, they've changed a lot. So I'm less worried about what society deems as successful or beautiful or healthy or whatever that might be. And so, for example, I lift weights a lot. And of course, as I was younger, it would, I felt powerful, but also you looked good, right? And so now I'm sort of really shifting that to feeling good. So I lift weights because I feel good and I'm strong and it helps my mobility as I get older. But another thing I have to do now, which I didn't, even 10 years ago, is I have to actively schedule days off between my intense workouts. I never had to schedule days off. I would just go, 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 go. Well, what happens now is I get extremely sore. Uncomfortably sore. And I also find that my body just kind of says, no, not today, right? I'm just not, I don't have as much energy. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to, lean into this. And so maybe I just go walking that day. So I think just recognizing what worked for you even a few years ago might not work for you now, but it's not a one size fits all, and it's not really anybody's business but your own on how that looks and how it makes you feel. So, I've made some adjustments, and I think mostly I'm giving myself a break. I'm not as hard on myself, and I'm doing what feels right versus what looks right. And I'm okay with that these days.
We have to listen to yourself to be able to do that, right? And I think that as we've raised kids and had jobs, like you don't always slow down enough to listen. But when you did slow down, speaking of slowing down and changing gears a little bit, you came up with this idea of totally wise, your philosophy around how you wanted to look forward and help others. What does totally wise mean to you? And how does that tie into a well-being plan?
My first week on the Camino, as I was walking 15 miles a day by myself, I had lots of time to think. And one of the things that's been on my mind nearly every day for the last 10 years is, how do I use my life's experience to serve others? So I've been an entrepreneur, a mother, fitness enthusiast, a marketer. So all these things in my life, I really feel like they've been put in place so that I can harness them, create a system or a framework to help other people tap into their own energies and their own, goals in life. And so totally wise to me is this notion that we are all complete as we are right now. We do not need external validation, stimulation, anything else, but it's inside of us. What happens, I think, over time or under circumstances is it gets buried, right? And so we need to peel away these layers to get back to our natural state of sense of self. And so if you can become quiet, if you can build this sense of awareness, which I think awareness is almost 90% of the work, you can begin to listen to that intuition, leaning into ease versus effort, really finding those people that you're drawn to, I talked about earlier. And so to me, totally wise is that framework to help people unlock their inner wisdom and live in their full power and potential. And I'm building it as I go. And I am, hopefully one day going to be able to write a book and speak, to people in larger audiences and just sort of really get that word out there. And I hope that this tool will serve people in helping them be able to really tap into what's already there.
I love it. April and I both do coaching, and I find that people know. Anyone I coach, like the end will like, oh wow. I'm like, you knew that already. You just need to listen. You needed either to listen to yourself or have someone help you listen to what's going on. So I love that idea that, you already are wise. So maybe you don't have the muscles or the experience of how to unlock that. But that's a beautiful sentiment. Like, I got this, right?
Yeah.
You're trusting, you're just, you're receiving. Again, it comes back to receiving and open palmed and moving with the river. I love your metaphor of the river and just flowing with it. The river goes where it's going to go. And sometimes it comes across rocks and sticks and it still gets there, right? Sometimes it's not it's moving either, but it still gets there. What advice, Sharman, would you give women in this stage of life around taking care of themselves?
I would say, first of all, this is not a dress rehearsal, right? We are here in this one life to do what we need to do and make the most of it. Take care of yourself, prioritize yourself, advocate for yourself, whether that's at work, in your community, in your family, and never ask for permission to prioritize your own well-being. I find that as women, we often are in service of others. We're taking care of family or children, and whether it's our kids or now maybe it's going to become our parents, right? We're always in between these generations. And so I just think that we must take care of ourselves before we can take care of others. And you don't need to apologize for that. You don't need to ask anyone permission. I mean, when I told my husband I was going to Spain by myself for 30 days, he did not believe me for quite a while until I was actually booking my flight. And I said, yeah, really. I was like, I'm not asking, I'm telling you, this is what I'm doing. I need this for myself. So I just think that we really need to step into our own power and our own wisdom, do it now. Get started. And I come back to also this lesson around meditation. I think meditation can be intimidating. And I used to think, I don't know how to do it. I'm not doing it right. And then someone once said to me, you can't do it wrong. As long as you're thinking about it, as long as you're aware of it. And so to me, that's how I go about my well-being strategy. And I help others think about it. You can't do it wrong. It doesn't look like anyone else. It's not what you see on TV or on the internet. It's your own. So take it slowly, take it one day at a time, prioritize yourself, and you'll eventually begin to feel that sense of being well.
That's great. I love that. Okay. So is there anything else that you think our audience would want to know that we haven't asked you? And how can people find you?
Anything else? Well, there's a few pieces of wisdom I've been leaning into lately, and I'll just share those because they're fun. One is not making a decision until you have to. And this can be really tough for type A personalities, people that want to check the list. They want to get it done. They want to be productive. They want to be efficient. They want to be seen as a superstar, right? I think we can all identify in that one way or another.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm secretly giggling over here.
I would call it a superpower lately is I just will have my list and I'll just be like, I'm not going to do that today, or that doesn't feel right, or I know that's there, but I'm not feeling compelled to check it off. You will be amazed how many things take care of themselves. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Like, oh, that worked itself out. Okay, I didn't have to do anything. So that's been my fun go-to, just let it be type of thing. And as far as where to find me, I have my own website at sharmanghio.com. I'm on Instagram at the same, at Sharman Ghio, and on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Well, great wisdom. And thank you for, bringing your story and experience to others, because I know that people, might not want to go on that trek, but can take some time to sort of be quiet and hear what they have to say. So we end our podcast with a rapid fire questions just for fun. And so are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning person, but don't talk to me before 10 a.m.
Okay.
Okay, fair.
Peace and quiet during those first few hours. Hiking or yoga?
Oh, now you're asking me to pick between my two children.
I put this one on purpose because I know you love to do both. So if you had to choose one.
You know what? I'm going to trick you a little bit. I would pick hiking because you can be in nature and because you can also practice yoga while you're hiking because it's quieting of the mind.
You have some beautiful pictures on your social media accounts of where you're doing that. Crazy rock poses and things.
Yeah.
Do you like to get things done early or last minute?
I like to get things done early, and I tackle what I don't want to do the most first.
Oh,
so good. Okay, good. That is what I call Eat the Ugly Green Frog, which is another whole other podcast. But I have a frog actually sitting right here to remind you just that, like, eat the frog, April.
You also raised your kids that way too. Like
I did.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to eat the frog. You just have to. What is the best piece of advice or a piece of advice that that you've received or that you would give to our audience?
I received this. I'm going to go back to business for a moment because this served me well in business, but also in life, I think, with raising kids and being a good friend, is to always anticipate the need of your customer. And you can replace customer with any type of stakeholder, maybe that is right there. And so I think I've become really attuned to watching and looking and listening for signs and trying to anticipate what people might need or want. And I think as a marketer and through other areas of my life, that served me really well. And even now I can say that I'm not making those decisions till I have to. So I'm sort of combining all this advice that I've gotten throughout life. And I think another piece of advice would be to not sort of hold on to things too tightly, but also be willing to change your mind and be flexible. And that's something that I've been working a lot on lately, is not to be so rigid, but to be more flexible and, be a little more easy.
Go with the flow, right?
Sounds a little easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your wisdom. And we could talk to you forever, but I think that you've brought some really good nuggets in. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's a wrap, Sharman. And audience, until we meet again, go find joy in the journey. Thank you for listening to the MiDOViA Menopause Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for future episodes, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend. There are more than 50 million women in the U.S. who are navigating the menopause transition. The situation is compounded by the presence of stigma, shame, and secrecy surrounding menopause, posing significant challenges and disruptions in women's personal and professional spheres. MiDOViA is out to change the narrative. Learn more at MiDOViA.com. That's MiDOViA.com. rediscovering.com.